Hello survivors, thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. My palms slipped on blood as I slammed the lab door and threw my shoulder against the steel. Something on the other side hit it hard enough to rattle the hinges and drive the breath out of me. The impact echoed down the corridor, a wet, meaty thud followed by a scrape of bone or teeth against metal. The whole frame shivered. Frost dusted down from the seam of the ceiling like shaken flour. Again, I gasped. Hit the bar now. Naomi shoved in beside me, boots squealing on the epoxy floor, her smaller frame braced like a battering ram. I felt her ribs knock into my arm, felt her breath go sharp as she shoved. The emergency bar locked with a heavy, final clank. On the other side of the door, Dr. Anders screamed. It wasn't words anymore. It hadn't been for the last 30 seconds. Just a ragged howl, high and animal and broken by wet gargling sounds that didn't belong in a human throat. I squeezed my eyes shut for half a second, not to pray. Prayers didn't make it this far north, not intact. I just needed my brain to reboot, to pull a usable plan out of the chaos. The corridor shook with another hit. Something thumped flat against the other side of the door, hard, then again, faster, like a body being used as a battering ram. That's your sedative working, I said, because if I didn't say something, I was going to hear Anders's voice instead of that animal shrieking. He's not going to feel it. It wasn't supposed to do this, Naomi whispered. Her voice sounded wrong in the alarm-streaked dark, small and precise under the warble of the klaxons. Red strobes pulsed over her face, painting her cheeks and the streaks of blood on her collar in drowning boat color. She was still clutching the tranq gun, knuckles bone white on the stock. One of the darts had misfired, embedding in the doorframe, the needle bent sideways like a twisted thorn. We have to move, I said. If the lab locks him in, we're fine. If it doesn't, the access panel beside the door flickered. A red error code flashed, seal failure. Then we're not fine, I finished. The whole corridor smelled like copper and disinfectant and that sweet sour rot that had seeped into everything over the last 6 hours. The sirens pulsed through my bones. 3 descending notes on endless repeat. The station's way of saying, containment breached. You're on your own. My name is Kai Lennox. I work night shift at a remote Arctic research lab, the kind of place people forget exists until something goes very, very wrong. 2 hours ago, I was alone in the control room, watching the aurora smear green over a black sky and drinking coffee that tasted like melted rubber. Now the door in front of me shook under the weight of the dead man we'd just locked inside. The dead man who had been my supervisor, another impact. The bolts groaned. Kai, Naomi said softly. He's going to break through. I forced my eyes open and looked at her. Her dark hair was half out of its bun, stray strands frozen into fine white needles where the cold had kissed them. She'd thrown her lab coat over thermal leggings and an oversized station hoodie, all of it spattered with someone else's blood. Her ID badge still swung on its lanyard, the photo smiling, clueless, from a world where people didn't tear each other's throats out. I'd promised her that she would be safe here. We can't stay, I said. We fall back to B corridor, take the service ladder to control, grab the drives, and then we get to the core shelter. That's the plan. It hasn't changed. It has, she said. You heard Hazen. We lost Section C. If they've overrun the medical wing, the core shelter might already be compromised. I thought of the hatch in the floor of the common room, the one everyone pretended not to notice when we were playing cards or watching bad movies on the projector. The armored ladder leading down to the concrete pillbox buried under the ice, packed with enough food and water for 2 weeks. The last resort bunker we always joked about, like it was a prop in a disaster movie. I thought of it filled with teeth and hands and eyes that didn't blink. The door jerked again. A crack spidered through the reinforced glass, inset at eye level, a lattice of shards. A gray smear pressed against it from the other side forehead or cheek. I couldn't tell. The skin looked wrong. Too pale, veins like dark worms under wax, "He's not Anders anymore," I said, partly to her and partly to the part of me that still wanted to rip the bar up and drag him out and apologize. The thing on the other side of the door shrieked again. The sound knifed down the corridor, too high, Dopplered and warped by whatever the pathogen had done to the lungs. "We move," I said. "Now." I peeled myself off the door. It shuddered under my retreating weight, the steel suddenly feeling like a soda can between my shoulder blades and whatever was pounding from the other side. Naomi hesitated, looking at the cracked window, her throat working. I hooked my fingers through the strap of her tranq gun and tugged. "Naomi," I said quietly, "if he gets out, we die here. If we die here, the data dies here. And then this," I jerked my chin at the door, at the scream ripping through it, "happens everywhere." "You told me that." Her gaze snapped to mine. For a second under the panic I saw the scientist again, the one who decornered me in the hangar 6 months ago, and told me I was wasting my life fixing snowcats when I could be keeping a whole station breathing. "Okay," she said. Her voice steadied. "Okay." We turned and ran. Our boots hammered the corridor, hitting the pace my old instructor used to call controlled panic. Red lights strobed, throwing shadows into long wet streaks across the walls. The station was never bright. I lived under the hum of emergency LEDs and soft task lamps, but tonight it felt like the building itself had dimmed, as if the whole structure was holding its breath. I counted the doors as we passed. B1 storage, B2 cold room, B3 quarantine lab, where Anders had torn off his own mask and attacked the tech before anyone could react. The tech whose blood was drying under my boots now. "Hagen said he'd meet us at the service ladder," Naomi panted. "He will," I lied. We hadn't heard from him in 11 minutes. 11 minutes was a lifetime now. Long enough for someone to scream, bleed, change. We hit the T-junction at the end of the corridor and skidded left, toward the maintenance wing. The floor curved gently, following the outer ring of the facility. Beyond the thick steel walls, the Arctic night pressed in 50 knots of wind, knifing across kilometer-thick ice. Temperature somewhere between "you die fast" and "you die immediately," the emergency. Shutters had slammed down over the portholes when the alarms triggered, but one had jammed halfway. As we passed, the world outside flashed between the slats. A smear of pale snow, a black sky, and a distant line of green aurora rippling like something alive. The sight would have taken my breath away yesterday. Tonight, all I saw was reflection, our own movement flickering in the glass. 2 figures running through the belly of a metal beast that was starting to come apart. We reached the maintenance hatch. The panel beside it glowed amber instead of red. One small miracle. I thumbed the manual override. The wheel lock disengaged with a heavy clunk. The hatch swung inward on its pneumatic hinges, sighing. Hagen stood at the top of the ladder, shotgun in hand. For a second, relief flared, so bright it was almost painful. He was big even without the parka, built like the icebreakers he'd worked on before they dropped him out here to babysit scientists. His gray beard was stiff with frost, his blue eyes bloodshot but clear. "You're late," he grunted over the alarms. "We had a problem," I said. "Anders?" Naomi flinched. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The screams from the lab at the far end of the corridor carried the story well enough. Hagen's jaw clenched around the scar that pulled at his mouth. He pumped the shotgun, more a grounding ritual than a necessity. The weapon was already loaded. "Then we go to Plan C. Plan C sucks," I said. "Plan C is alive," he replied. "Or you want Plan D. What's Plan D?" Naomi asked, voice tight. "Die," he said simply. He slung the shotgun and gestured down the ladder. "To go." I locked the hatch behind us. The ladder dropped into the vertical spine of the station, a narrow shaft that ran from the mechanical bay below up to the control room above. I swung my legs over and started down, hands cold on the metal rungs. The air in the shaft was colder, tinged with diesel and machine oil and the faint metallic tang of ozone. As I climbed, Each movement sent a dull ache through my shoulders. The adrenaline finally burning off enough to let my body register that I'd slammed into the lab door hard enough to bruise bone. Naomi followed, boots clanging above me. Hagen came last. We descended past the mechanical level, where the generator's rumble vibrated the metal beneath my gloves. The station lived and died on that generator. Lose it, and you lost lights, heat, air circulation. You lost the pumps that kept the meltwater flowing, and the heaters that kept the pipes from turning into solid ropes of ice. Lose it, and you lost the thin barrier between us and the kind of cold that didn't just kill you, but erased you. We're not stopping at mechanical, I called up. Control first, Hagen replied. We need a look at the whole station, yeah? All cameras full schematic. Then we decide where to freeze them. Freeze them. It was a terrible plan. Of course we were going to use it. The pathogen Naomi still refused to call it anything else, even now didn't like the cold. It spread fast in warm tissue, turned people into those things in under 10 minutes at room temperature. But body heat bled away fast in the Arctic. We'd seen one of the early infected stagger outside without a coat. He'd collapsed in 30 seconds and stopped moving a minute later. Not dead, exactly, but slow, sluggish. If we could vent certain sections of the station, open them to the outside air long enough, maybe we could slow the infected down. Turn the station itself into a cryotank. Of course, we'd be inside the tank too. The ladder ended at a small landing. Above us, another hatch led up into the control room. Hagen squeezed past Naomi and me on the cramped platform and pressed his ear against the metal. The sirens were louder up here, the sound reverberating through the hatch. No other noises. No scratching, no banging, no wet, horrible scuffling. That didn't necessarily mean anything. The infected were quiet when they were hunting. Hagen cracked the hatch. A wash of cold, stale air slid down over us. The control room lights flickered like dying fireflies. The big screens that usually showed weather patterns and ocean currents and satellite telemetry now glowed with error codes and warning overlays, a patchwork of red and amber. Clear, Hagen murmured. We climbed into the room one by one, weapons up. I'd scavenged a sidearm from security's locker earlier. The pistol felt small and light in my hand, insulting in a way, like a toy gun in a real war. The control room was the closest thing the station had to a bridge, a ring of workstations around a central console, all facing outward to a wall of screens. Someone's mug lay shattered on the floor, coffee fused into an ugly brown smear with something darker. I locked them out of here, Hagen said. Before I came down for you. They? Naomi asked. Med team, he said. Simmons, Versha, 2 others. They were already twitching when I saw them on the cameras. Naomi's shoulders slumped. We could have sedated them. Like you sedated Anders? He asked bluntly. She went still. Enough, I said, a little sharper than I meant to. Hagen grunted and moved to the main console. His fingers, thick and scarred, flew over the keys with the grace of long practice. He'd been running this station for 12 years. He knew every circuit like it was a vein in his own hand. The main schematic sprang up on the center screen, a top-down view of the station, color-coded for life support, pressure integrity, access control. Sections B and C glowed furious red. A pulsing orange halo circled the medical wing. They're in the common room, Hagen said, stabbing a finger at the screen. And here, his fingers slid to the med wing. And in C corridor, lab side only for now. For now, I echoed. The camera feed from the common room flickered up on a side monitor. I saw overturned chairs, a broken table, cards scattered like confetti. A smear of red across the screen where someone had gone down near the camera. 2 figures lurched through the frame. Simmons, the med tech, his once white scrubs soaked brown. And behind him Versha, her long braids swinging tamely down her back as if she were just walking to grab a coffee. Simmons turned toward the camera. His eyes were wrong. The pupils had gone cloudy, The irises rimmed and burst capillaries. His mouth hung open, jaw working in a slow, grinding chew that didn't stop even though there was nothing between his teeth. Naomi swallowed hard. "If they get to the core hatch, they will not," Huggins said. "I locked it before they changed." "Locks don't matter," I said quietly. "Not if one of us follows them down and opens it." That was the part that scared me. Not the monsters outside the door, but the monster inside my own skull. The one that wanted to believe that the person on the other side of the glass was still in there. That I could fix this if I just tried harder, stayed longer, didn't abandon them. The one that had sat in the driver's seat of a rusting pickup 10 years ago and watched my little brother bleed out on the side of an icy road because I couldn't make myself move. I swallowed the memory down hard enough that it hurt. "We need redundancy," I said. "We can't have a single-point failure at the core hatch." "You propose?" Hagen asked. "We vent the common room," I said. "Drop the interior shutters, open the outer shutters. Let the Arctic do what it's good at." Naomi flinched. There might still be uninfected in there. The alarms triggered. Everyone was supposed to gather. "Look," I said. On the camera, a third figure stumbled into frame. Jan, one of the night custodians. She was holding her arm to her chest, blood slicking between her fingers. She turned, face pale, eyes wide and searching, for about 2 seconds. Then her gaze went flat. Her jaw clenched. The blood flowing from her arm thickened, darkened, as if it couldn't decide whether to be liquid anymore. She straightened slowly, her injury forgotten. Her head snapped toward the camera like a predator catching a scent. "Naomi," I said gently, "there are no uninfected in that room." She stared at the screen, lips trembling, then nodded once. "Do it," she whispered. Hagen's fingers punched in the commands. A warning flashed across the console. "Exterior shutter override confirm." "Confirm," he said. The station shuddered softly. A deeper rumble under the sirens, the sound of steel shutters grinding open against screaming wind. On the camera, the room seemed to shake, invisible force slamming into it. Papers took flight first, a flurry of white. Then chairs scraped across the floor as the differential pressure yanked at them. The infected barely reacted at first. Their bodies were tough in the wrong ways, resilient to pain, but not smart enough to brace. Then the temperature hit them. Frost bloomed on Simmons's exposed skin like fast-forward time-lapse, spreading from his cheeks down his neck. His lips cracked. Versha's braids snapped sideways in the gale, ice forming on the individual strands. Jan's mouth opened in what might have been a scream, but whatever sound she made was eaten by the wind. Their movements slowed. The jerky lunges became sluggish reaches. Their fingers stiffened. They slipped on ice that formed under their feet, limbs splaying at unnatural angles. 30 seconds. That was all it took. Then they were still. "You just killed them," Naomi said. Her voice was somewhere between horror and awe. "They were already dead," Huggins said. No one argued. For a moment, the three of us stood in the ghostlight glow of the monitors, listening to the station groan and the wind howl through sections. We just opened to the vacuum of the Arctic night. "We can't vent every corridor," Naomi said quietly. "Some of the shutters are manual. We'd have to go there." "So we go," I said. "And if we get trapped?" she asked. I thought of my brother again. Of sitting frozen while the truck's hazard lights blinked red, white, red across the snow. Of the way time had stretched out, thin and useless. "Then we keep moving until we're not," I said. "We don't freeze, not like that," Hagen grunted. "I will take the mechanical wing. Lots of shutters there. You two go for med." "Med is worst hit," Naomi protested. "You can't." "I am old man," he said. "I know this place. I can move in the dark better than you. And if I do not return, you are the ones who know how to cure this." "We don't have a cure," she said bitterly. "Then you are the ones who know how to make it worse," he countered. "We must keep that from happening again." His gaze flicked to me. You protect her, he added. I nodded once. The promise settled on my shoulders like another layer of ice. We divided quickly. Hagen grabbed extra shells from the locker and slung a coil of emergency rope over his shoulder. Naomi and I took a pack of sample vials, Naomi insisting until the last moment that she might yet see something under a microscope that would change all of this. It was a kind of faith, I supposed. Not the kind I understood, but something like it. We moved through B corridor, cut across the observation deck, then down to Med, I said, tracing the route on the schematic. We vent what we can on the way, and we don't stop for anything we can't help. Kai, Naomi began. I mean it, I said. You hear screaming behind a door, you keep moving. You see someone through a window, you keep moving. You look at me, and I hesitate, you keep moving. Her eyes widened. I'm not leaving you. If I get bitten, you are, I said. No heroics, no speeches. You run. The memory in my chest twisted. My brother hadn't needed me to be brave. He just needed me to open the door. Why? She whispered. Because I've already watched someone die because I couldn't move, I said. I'm not doing it again. She studied my face for a long, painful second. Then she nodded. Okay, she said. But the same goes for me. If I get bitten, you run. No cure, no staying to measure my blood or watch me change. You put me down or you get out. My throat tightened. Deal. We bumped fists, the gesture small and absurd in the middle of the apocalypse, then turned toward the hatch on the far side of the control room. Hagen stopped us with a hand on each of our shoulders. If I do not make it back, he said quietly, and you reach the core shelter, you do not open it for anyone you cannot see. Cameras only. Yes? Hagen, Naomi began. Yes? He insisted. I met his gaze. He was giving orders now, not suggestions. The station chief and him, the man who'd watched storms crack ships open like eggs. Yes, I said. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not a smile, something harder. Then we go, he said. We stepped through the hatch. The corridor outside felt different now that I'd seen the schematic. These weren't just anonymous halls anymore. They were arteries carrying either life or infection. The air felt thicker, weighed down by the knowledge that every meter we traveled was a meter where we might get cut off. The emergency lights strobed slower here, like a heartbeat losing rhythm. Our footsteps echoed in the manufactured quiet between siren cycles. We moved fast but not loud, weapons up, hugging corners, checking blind spots. Every doorway became a potential mouth. Every dark patch on the floor demanded a second look. Do you hear that? Naomi whispered. At first I thought she meant the wind, its low, constant roar outside the walls. But then I caught it, a soft, wet, repetitive sound coming from up ahead. Like someone mashing raw meat in their hands, we slowed. The sound was coming from the junction by the observation deck. A soft glow spilled out into the hall, not the harsh red of emergency lighting, but something warmer, flickering. Flashlight, I mouthed. Naomi nodded, slipping the small torch from her belt and turning it off. We crept closer in the dark, guided by the pulsing alarm and the faint, horrible rhythm of that sound. The observation deck was a long room with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the ice field. We used to come here at the end of shift, lean on the rail, and watch the sky dance. Someone had hung Christmas lights along the upper edge last month, strings of tiny LEDs that cast a dim, festive halo over the snow. Most of those lights were still on. And in the middle of the deck, half in shadow, someone was eating a body. It took my brain a second to parse the scene. The Christmas lights turned the blood into odd colors, greenish-blue on the floor, purple-black on the walls. The thing crouched over the body moved in short, jerky spasms, shoulders rising and falling. It didn't look up. Back, I whispered. We started to ease away. One of the Christmas lights popped with a tiny spark. The thing's head snapped up. Its eyes locked onto us, pupils blown wide, irises a muddy color I couldn't place. Its mouth was full of meat. Shreds of a lab coat hung from its teeth. It chewed once, twice, never breaking eye contact. Then it screamed. The sound was worse in the open space than it had been behind the door. It ricocheted off the glass, burrowed into the bones of the station, set my teeth on edge. "Run," I said, and didn't have to say it twice. We sprinted back into the corridor as the infected hurled itself off the deck and after us, bare feet slapping the floor. More screams answered it from somewhere deeper in the station, a chorus of rage. "Left," I shouted. We cut into a side corridor, shoes skidding on a smear of blood. Naomi slipped. I caught her by the back of her hoodie, yanking her upright without breaking stride. The corridor ended in two doors. One led to a storage closet. The other, according to the faded sign, led to a research sublab. The storage closet would be small, easy to barricade. A tomb if more than one infected found us. The lab might have another exit, or it might not. That was the choice, small death or big unknown. "Lab," I barked, hauling the door handle. It resisted for a second, then gave, swinging inward. We dove inside. I kicked it shut behind us and slammed the manual lock. The room was dark. The only light came from a small emergency strip along the floor and the faint glow of instrument panels on standby. Metal tables loomed like islands in a Red Sea. Something moved in the corner. I brought the pistol up, finger tight on the trigger. "Don't shoot," a voice hissed. "For the love of God, don't shoot." My heart lurched. "Who's there?" I demanded. "Rafi," the voice said. "It's Rafi," Naomi sucked in a breath. "Rafi?" A figure uncurled from behind one of the lab benches. Rafi Qureshi, the youngest member of the night crew, straightened up slowly, hands raised. His glasses were crooked, one lens cracked. Blood matted his hair on one side, but his eyes were clear. "You're alive," Naomi breathed. "For now," he said. I heard screaming and locked myself in here. Then the power flickered, and I thought, he swallowed. Is it everywhere?" Behind us, something slammed into the door. The panel shuddered. Dust sifted down from the frame. "We brought a friend," I muttered. The second impact was harder. A hairline crack appeared in the metal around the lock, like a vein in ice. "There's another door," Rafi said quickly, pointing toward the back. "Leads to the cold storage annex. From there, you can get to the auxiliary airlock and the radio tower tunnel." Radio tower. The words sparked something bright in my chest. The main satellite uplink had gone down an hour ago, right as Med called in their first weird case. We've been on backup comms since, piggybacking off a temp array. If we could reach the tower, maybe we could get a stronger signal. Maybe we could shout loud enough that someone, somewhere would hear. "Show me," I said. Rafi darted toward the back of the lab, weaving between benches with the kind of muscle memory only a night shift tech could have. Naomi and I followed, the door behind us buckling under repeated blows. The annex door was smaller, recessed into the far wall. Rafi slammed his palm against the panel. It blinked from red to green with a reluctant beep. "Come on," he whispered. We squeezed through just as the lab door shrieked behind us, metal tearing. The sound cut through the sirens, through the wind, through everything. It was the sound of the station's skin ripping open. The cold storage annex was exactly what it sounded like. A long, narrow space lined with industrial freezers. Frost furred every surface, crawling down the walls and across the floor in delicate white filigree. The air hit my lungs like knives. The auxiliary airlock was at the far end, a squat cylinder of thicker metal. Beyond it lay a short tunnel cut through the ice, leading to the radio tower, a lonely needle of steel and antennae jutting up from the snow. It would be colder out there, darker, more exposed. Between us and the airlock, the floor was slick with ice. "Hurry," Naomi said, hugging herself against the cold. We shuffled forward, trying not to slip. Behind us, the annex door rattled as something hit the other side. "Do they know how to use panels?" Rafi whispered. "I don't think so," Naomi said. The motor cortex stays intact, but higher function. The panel beside the door flashed green. The annex door hissed open a centimeter. They learn, I said tightly. Move. We bolted. Ice be damned. Rafi's feet flew out from under him. He went down hard, skidding. I grabbed the back of his jacket and yanked, barely slowing. The door to the labs slammed all the way open behind us. The infected shrieked as the colder air hit them, but the sound didn't slow them down. Their bare feet slapped the frozen floor, slip, skid, slap, closer, closer. We hit the airlock controls. The outer door was already closed. Thank God for small mercies. I slammed the inner door release. It groaned open, painfully slow, hydraulics sluggish in the cold. Come on, I muttered. Naomi darted inside first. Rafi followed, stumbling. I backed in last, pistol up. The first of the infected burst into the annex. It was the one from the observation deck, its face and hands smeared with drying blood, lips shredded from overuse. It saw us and screamed, lunging forward, arms outstretched. I fired. The recoil hammered my wrists. The shot took it in the chest. It staggered but didn't stop. Headshot. Naomi shouted, working on it. I snapped. I fired again. The second bullet caught it high in the cheek, shattering bone. Its head snapped sideways. For a heartbeat, it hung there, frozen in an obscene tableau of motion. Then it crumpled. Two more infected barreled into the annex behind it, climbing over the fallen body. Claw's fingers, Kai. Those are fingers scrabbling on the ice. Door, I yelled. Naomi hit the control. The inner door screamed, hydraulics finally catching, and slammed shut just as the first infected hurled itself at the opening. The impact reverberated through the airlock, a hollow boom. The whole cylinder shook. The lights flickered. Pressure equalization, Rafi panted. We can't open the outer door until the emergency lights died. For one awful second, there was nothing but darkness and the sound of my own pulse. Then a dim blue glow sputtered to life along the floor, the backup power strips. We lost main, Naomi whispered. Generator? I asked. Rafi shook his head, face pale in the blue light. If it was the generator, we wouldn't have anything. This is localized. Localized where? I pressed. Here, he said. The airlock shuddered as something slammed into the outer door. I stared at it, cold sinking through my bones in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. That's impossible, Naomi said, voice very small. The outer door trembled again, harder. Frost cracked on its surface. How many did you see outside when you came on shift? I asked her quietly. Outside? None, she said. We were isolated. The outbreak was in the cities, not here. We're hundreds of kilometers from another impact cut her off. Through the small porthole in the outer door, something moved. Not the white blur of snow, not the flicker of aurora. A shape. A hand. Gray skin, fingers blackened with frost, nails cracked. It clawed at the glass. A face pressed up an instant later, teeth bared in a snarl that might once have been a scream. Ice rimed its lashes. Its hair whipped in a wind we couldn't hear. There were more shapes behind it, many more. They're outside, Rafi breathed. How? Naomi whispered. It doesn't matter, I said. Because it didn't. However, they'd gotten here on a supply plane, a snowcat. Walking half-frozen across the ice, it meant one thing. The station wasn't an island anymore. The plague had found us, carried on torn flesh and bad luck. The dead were on both sides of our walls. The airlock shuddered again, caught between two worlds, one inside, already rotten, and one outside, turning rotten fast. We were in the middle, 3 breaths in a metal throat. We can't open this door, Naomi said, voice shaking. If we do, they'll pour in. If we don't, we're trapped, Rafi said. The annex will fall. The lab will fall. The station. A hairline fracture appeared in the porthole glass with a sound like ice screaming. We are out of time, Hagen's voice said suddenly in my memory. We must keep that from happening again. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, loud enough to drown the sirens, the impacts, everything. 2 choices, both bad. Die slow in here when the inner door finally failed, or gamble everything on opening the outer door and sprinting into a blizzard full of frozen corpses. I looked at Naomi, at Rafi, at the crack in the glass, spreading like a spider web. On my mark, I said, hand hovering over the outer door control. We open it, and we run for the tower. No stopping. No looking back. Kai, Naomi began. Trust me, I said. Please. The crack leapt, a jagged line racing across the porthole. A thin spray of ice crystals hissed into the airlock, stinging my face. 3, I said. The infected outside slammed into the door again, their faces a blur of gray flesh and ice. 2. Something hit the inner door from behind, hard enough to dent the metal. 1. I slammed my palm down on the control. The outer door locks screamed as they released. The last thing I saw before the world turned into howling white was Naomi's eyes, wide and terrified and blazing with something else underneath. Hope, maybe. Or the desperate, furious refusal to die forgotten at the bottom of the world. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The cold hit me like a truck made of needles. When the outer door blew, the wind punched into the airlock and ripped the breath out of my lungs. 1 second I was standing on my own feet. The next I was a rag doll, yanked toward the white hole where the door had been. Snow and ice shards blasted through, stinging every strip of exposed skin. My eyelashes froze together. The world narrowed to a roar and a blur. I did what my body remembered from 100 safety drills. Dropped my center of gravity, grabbed for the safety line bolted to the inner bulkhead. My gloved fingers found the metal ring and locked around it. Naomi screamed something I couldn't hear. Rafi slammed into my side, his weight trying to peel me off the ring. I hooked my arm through the line, muscles screaming as I anchored us both. Behind us, the inner door boomed under another hit from whatever was in the annex. The airlock vibrated like a drum between 2 hammers. Dead things inside, worse things outside. Go, I bellowed, not sure if the word made it out of my frozen throat. I shoved Rafi toward the open doorway, toward the tunnel carved through the ice. He stumbled into the whiteout, roped to me by the safety line. Naomi pushed off the bulkhead and followed, small and fierce, one hand on Rafi's jacket, the other on her sample pack like it was a lifeline. We plunged into the Arctic night. The tunnel was just a gouge in the ice, chest-high walls on either side, roof open to the sky. The wind howled straight down it, turning it into a wind tunnel from hell. Above us, the aurora flickered green and violet between racing clouds. A smeared painting glimpsed through blown snow. The radio tower loomed at the far end, a black skeleton of steel and cables. Its red aircraft warning light blinked in the whiteout like a single tired heartbeat. Between the airlock and the tower, the snow wasn't empty. Shapes lurched in the gale, human outlines wrapped in ice, clothes ripped and flapping. Their movements were jerky but relentless. They staggered toward us with that awful, ugly determination I'd seen in the common room footage. Only now they were rimed in frost, skin cracked like old porcelain. Their eyes were half-frozen pearls. They'd come here in the storm, or they'd gotten out. Either way, the Arctic hadn't killed them. It had just made them slower. "Keep low," I shouted. "They're sluggish and the cold use it." My words were torn away by the wind, but Naomi seemed to understand. She ducked, lowering her profile, one hand skimming the icy wall like a guide rail as she moved. Rafi hunched around the equipment case he'd refused to leave behind. His teeth gritted so hard I could hear them click. The nearest infected lurched for him. Even slowed by the cold, it was fast enough. It lunged with arms stiff and clawed, fingers black where the frostbite had eaten through. Its mouth was a ragged hole, lips torn from overuse. I let go of the safety line. The wind tried to steal me immediately. I stepped into it, each stride a fight, pistol up. My fingers were already numb, trigger weight got abstract. The infected's face filled my sights. Ice, blood, those dead, hungry eyes. I fired. The shot cracked across the ice, the muzzle flash a brief starburst in the dark. The bullet took the infected in the temple. Its head snapped sideways, body following a beat later, toppling bonelessly into the snow. The noise woke the others. Heads turned along the tunnel, as if on strings. One by one, they focused on us. Mouths opened. No sound reached me over the wind, but I felt the scream anyway, like a pressure change in my bones. "Run!" I roared. We ran. The snow underfoot was uneven, treacherous. Ice ridges caught at our boots. I slipped twice, smashing my knees on rock-hard drifts, each impact sending fresh pain screaming up my legs. I got up each time. There wasn't another option. Every few strides I glanced back. The infected followed, a stuttering wave of bodies. They slipped and fell, but they didn't stay down. They crawled, dragged themselves, fingers digging trenches in the snow. Closer, the tower base loomed, a squat concrete block sunk into the ice, steel ladders bolted to its sides. A heavy door sat recessed in the lee of the structure, half buried in blown drifts. A small red light above the keypad blinked anemically. "Rafi!" I yelled. "Door!" He didn't argue. He reached the keypad first, dropping to his knees to scrape the ice away with bare hands. His gloves had torn somewhere back in the lab. His fingers left streaks of blood on the steel. "Code's the same as control," he shouted back without looking. Hagen never changed it. I hope to God he was right. Naomi pressed her back to the tower, eyes squeezed shut against the wind, tranq gun hugged to her chest. It was almost useless now. The darts would freeze before they delivered a full dose. I turned to face the tunnel. The infected were close enough now that I could see their faces clearly between gusts. Some I recognized. Mikkel from engineering, his big hands now claws. Eliza from logistics, parka torn open, scarf trailing like entrails. Their eyes were different, clouded over, but the faces were still there. Guilt hit me like another gust of wind. I pushed it down. There would be time for guilt if we lived. "Come on, Rafi," I muttered. He cursed in 2 languages and jammed his bleeding fingers against the keypad one more time. The red light flicked to green. The door's mag locks released with a heavy thunk. "In!" I shouted. Naomi dove through first. Rafi followed, hauling the equipment case with him. I backed in last, firing twice more into the advancing crowd. One infected went down, face gone, brain steaming in the cold. Another didn't even slow when the bullet punched through its shoulder. I yanked the door shut and slammed the manual lock. The infected hit it a heartbeat later. The impact shook the tower base. Frost dusted down from the ceiling. The metal groaned but held for now. Inside, it was marginally less cold. The tower base was a cramped room stuffed with racks of equipment. Battery banks, signal boosters, emergency power controls. A ladder ran up the center like a spine, disappearing into the shadows above. The familiar smell of hot electronics and stale coffee hit me. I hadn't realized how much of a home it had become until that moment. "We can't stay here long," Naomi panted. "If they pile up against the door, the hinges won't hold." "We won't," I said. Rafi, he was already moving, slapping at switches, checking analog gauges with quick, practiced flicks of his eyes. "Backup generators running," he said. "We've got power to the transmitter, but the antenna array took a hit in the storm. Signal strength is going to be trash unless we boost." "Boost how?" Naomi asked. "We divert from the station," he said. I stared at the panel. "You mean we starve the main facility to feed this thing?" "Lights, heat, everything." He met my gaze. His pupils were pinpricks now, adrenaline turning his eyes almost black. "They're already overrun, Kai," he said softly. "We saw it. Venting bought us time, not miracles." If there's anyone left in there, he didn't finish. Naomi stepped forward, jaw set. If we get a message out, if we get the data out, maybe it matters that we survived. If we don't. She glanced toward the door as the infected hit it again. Then we just die in one more dark room. The old guilt rose again, hot and sour in my throat. My brother on the side of the road, the way his hand had twitched, reaching for me while I froze. I wasn't going to freeze this time. Do it, I said. Pull everything. Give the tower every watt we've got. Rafi nodded grimly and began rerouting power. The lights flickered as he flipped breakers. Somewhere beneath us, deep in the bowels of the station, relays clicked and generators strained. On the wall, a schematic similar to the one in control lit up. This one focused on the comms grid. The tower icon flared brighter as the station nodes dimmed. We're on our own grid now, Rafi said. Once we crank the transmitter, there won't be enough juice to keep the station livable. Pipes will freeze within an hour. Then we'd better make it count, I said. We climbed. The ladder was cold enough that I could feel it through my gloves. Each rung bit into my palms. My muscles burned with every pull. Below us, the infected kept hitting the door, each impact sending a faint shudder up the tower's bones. Halfway up, the walls grew thinner. I could hear the wind again, shrieking past the tower, trying to pry it off the ice. The transmitter room sat just below the antenna array, a circular space barely bigger than a bathroom, crammed with more equipment. Consoles wrapped around the walls, their displays flickering like tired eyes. The central chair was bolted to the floor, strapped down for storms. I dropped into it and grabbed the headset. You know the bands? I asked. All of them, Rafi said, sliding into the secondary console. If there's anything within 1,000 kilometers still listening, we'll find it.
Repeat, we are compromised. Multiple infected on site. We have 3 survivors in the comms tower with full pathogen data. Request immediate extraction and containment guidance. Static hissed. The tower hum climbed another notch. Copy, Polaris, the voice came back. Warier now. We read you. Be advised. Global outbreak conditions confirmed. Mainland is not accepting any potentially contaminated assets. Naomi's hand clamped on my shoulder. Global, she whispered. I closed my eyes for a second. One word, and the world shrank. Cities going dark. Planes grounded. People barricading themselves in apartments that would turn into tombs. I pushed the image away and focused on the voice. We have data, I said. Genome sequences, progression logs, resistance profiles. We can broadcast. Do you have a secure channel? A pause. I could almost hear the calculations grinding behind the silence. Negative on secure channel, the Resolute said finally. Satellite grid is compromised. You are ordered to maintain data integrity and await tactical response. Sanitization protocols are in effect for all high-risk sites. Sanitization, Naomi said. He means they're going to blow us off the map, I finished. The tower shook again. Dust and frost rained from the ceiling. Below, the infected had started to climb, scrabbling up the tower's base, fingers finding purchase in bolt holes and maintenance rungs. A dull, continuous thudding carried up the ladder shaft.
Polaris, confirm receipt, the Resolute said. My mouth was dry. I could taste metal on my tongue. Negative, Resolute, I said. We do not confirm. We are proceeding with independent data broadcast. Suggest you save your bombs for somewhere that still has a chance. Lennox out. Kai, the voice began sharply. I killed the channel. Transmission ready, Rafi said. His voice shook, but his hands were steady. I looked at Naomi. Her eyes were bright, fever-hot with a kind of reckless clarity. If this makes it worse, she said calmly, that's on me. I signed off on the trials. I pushed for accelerated data. You can still pull the plug. You didn't open those doors, I said. You didn't fly whatever poor bastard was infected up here. You didn't decide the response to help would be burn it all. We are in the middle of a river that was already in flood. I put my hand on the transmit switch. We either drown quietly, I said, or we scream loud enough that someone upstream hears us. Rafi's lips moved. Maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. Do it, Naomi whispered. I threw the switch. The tower roared. The hum jumped from a whine to a full-body vibration. The hair on my arms lifted as the antenna array above us spat raw information into the sky, a dying star flaring one last time. On the screen, a progress bar crawled from 0 upward, percentage ticking slowly higher as terabytes of data slammed into the broken sky. 12%. Below us, something heavy hit the ladder. A rattle of metal on metal. The infected were climbing. We bought ourselves a timer, Rafi said tightly. When that hits 100, the capacitors blow. After that, this tower is just a very cold, very tall target. How long? I asked. 10 minutes, he said. Maybe less if the storm worsens. Another impact, closer. I pulled my pistol and moved to the hatch at the top of the ladder. Through the grated opening, I saw movement hands, faces, bodies hauling themselves up with inhuman determination. I'll hold them, I said. You can't alone, Naomi protested. I don't need to, I said. I just need 10 minutes. The first infected head crested the hatch. Its face was half sloughed, skin hanging in strips, teeth bared. Its eyes fixed on me with hungry focus. I fired. The head snapped back. The body tumbled, taking 2 more with it. They fell, limbs tangled, hitting the lower rungs with sickening thuds. The tower shuddered as they crashed against the inner walls. 9 minutes, Rafi muttered behind me. Data at 28. The next infected climbed around the pile of bodies. I shot that one too. They kept coming, time folded. It became a rhythm. Aim, fire, recoil punching up my arms. The occasional click of an empty magazine, the frantic slam of a reload with numb fingers. My world narrowed to the hatch, the ladder, the faces that rose through it. They blurred together, colleagues, strangers, people whose names I'd half memorized from station rosters and never thought would matter. Behind me, the progress bar crept. 42, 56, 69. My arms burned. My ears rang. The smell in the tower was copper and cordite and cold sweat. One of them got a hand through before I could fire. Its fingers closed around my boot, grip like a vice. I slipped, hitting the metal grate hard. Pain flared in my hip. The infected yanked. I grabbed the ladder frame with one hand, trying to kick free. With the other hand, I jammed the pistol down and fired point blank. The gun barked. The hand let go. My vision went white around the edges for a second, black spot swimming. Kai, Naomi shouted. You okay? Define okay, I gasped. 81, Rafi yelled. We're close. A new sound cut through the tower, a low, distant rumble, different from the wind. It vibrated in my chest like a held note. I froze. Engines. Someone was coming. Hear that? I shouted. Naomi's eyes went wide. Rescue. I thought of the word sanitization. Maybe, I said. Stay on the upload. The infected surged again. One forced its way through the hatch, body scraping, bones grinding against steel. It came at me, teeth snapping. Naomi swung the tranq gun like a club, cracking its skull. The only sound was our breathing and the engines drawing closer. 97, Rafi whispered. Almost there. I glanced down the hatch. The ladder was clogged with bodies. More infected were climbing over them. They'll break through, I said. We won't be here, Rafi replied. Louder now, the engines roared. Through the viewport, I saw lights. Not helicopters, bombers. Upload at 99, Rafi said. The progress bar hit 100%. We're done. The tower screamed. Lights flared, then snapped off. We were in darkness. 10 kilometers, Rafi repeated faintly. You want to argue distance, I said. Or you want to outrun fire? Another low rumble answered for him. We scrambled down the ladder, slipping on frozen gore, hands sliding on rungs slick with half-frozen blood. My shoulder burned with each movement. My lungs felt too small. At the base, the door shook in its frame, not from claws this time, but from the aftershocks of the blast. Wind's going to be worse, I said. Bomb warmed the air. It'll kick the storm into overdrive. Naomi met my gaze. Somewhere in the fear, in the grief, there was that same fierce light I'd seen in the airlock. Then we lean into it, she said. Use it to cover our trail, make it harder for anything to follow. I almost smiled. That's my scientist, I said. Rafi snorted. You're both insane. Probably, I said. But we're still breathing. Open it on 3. We braced ourselves. 1, I said. The engines roared again, closer. 2. The tower groaned, metal protesting the stress. 3. We hauled the door open and stepped out into a world that was on fire and frozen at the same time. Above us, the sky burned orange where the bomb had gone off, mixing with the green ripples of the aurora in a sick, beautiful smear. Snow whirled in horizontal sheets, glowing in the strange light. In the distance, where the station had been, a pillar of dark smoke twisted up into the polar night. Closer, scattered across the ice like broken toys, were the infected that had been outside the tower. Some lay still, finally frozen solid. Others stirred, half-buried, trying to rise. Don't look, I told Naomi and Rafi. Pick a point east and move. 1 foot in front of the other. I clipped us all to the safety line, shortened it so we were practically on top of each other, a single knot of stubborn humanity in the teeth of the storm. We started walking. Every step hurt. The wind shoved at us, tried to knock us down, tried to turn us back. The cold gnawed at my exposed skin, finding every gap in my gear. My eyelashes froze again. Tears turned to ice instantly. Somewhere behind us, the bombers banked for another pass. I didn't look. I kept my eyes on the featureless shifting white ahead and counted steps. 50. 100. My brother's hand reaching for me in the snow. 200. Naomi stumbling, me yanking her back up. 300. Rafi's voice, hoarse, reciting coordinates and distance like a mantra. At some point, the thunder behind us rolled again. A second sun bloomed, this one closer. The shockwave hit us from behind like a giant's shove. We went down, all 3 of us, slammed into the snow. Air blew out of my lungs in a painful rush. I forced my head up. Behind us, where the tower had been, there was only a column of light and blowing debris. Metal, ice, bodies all torn up and thrown into the dark. They're really not taking chances, Rafi whispered. Good, I said through chattering teeth. Means they're scared. Of us? Naomi asked. Of what we know, I said. Of what we just sent. We lay there for a second, pressed into the ice by the receding wave of the blast, hearts hammering, ears ringing. Then I pushed myself up. Come on, I said. We keep moving. Until we can't, then we crawl. Then we hope the world we just screamed at decides we were worth the trouble. And if it doesn't, Rafi asked softly. I looked out into the endless lethal white, where 10 kilometers of bad choices lay between us and a half-remembered shack. The wind howled. Far off, something that might have been an infected dragged itself across the ice, too slow to catch us now but not slow enough to die. Then we make our own world, I said. One where this doesn't happen again. Even if it's just the 3 of us on a rock of ice. Even if we die trying. Naomi slid her hand into mine, glove to glove, grip fierce. Then let's make it, she said. I squeezed back, turned my face into the storm, and took another step, because the night shift wasn't over. Not yet. And somewhere out there, beyond the static and the fire and the ice, someone had heard us. I just had to live long enough to find out who. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.